Hey, it's Susie Barrett. Before we get started, I have a teeny tiny bit of housekeeping. Yes also has entered the world of subscription platforms. Don't worry, the show is still free, but if you can give and support, boy would we love it. The good news is we have all kinds of bonus content for you. Q&A episodes, bonus episodes with past guests, deleted scenes, video feeds, and all of that awaits you at yesalso.supercast.com. With your help and support, we can keep this project going indefinitely. That's yesalso.supercast.com. See you there. Welcome to Yes Also. I'm Susie Barrett, and my guest today is one of the all-time greats, Lauren Lapkus. You know Lauren from shows like Orange is the New Black and the new Star Trek series. She's the star of the movies The Wrong Missy and Another Happy Day, and comedy fans know her as a tour de force on Comedy Bang Bang. In the improv world, she studied at I.O. in Chicago and UCB New York, and at UCB LA, she's played with AssCat and Wild Horses, and one of the greatest Herald teams of all time, Bangarang. Lauren and I have been friends for years, but we've never really talked about the ins and outs of comedy together, and it was so cool to go on this journey with her. We talk about how she comes up with her Comedy Bang Bang characters and the process of auditioning for SNL and a ton of other great stuff. As always, make sure you head to our Instagram page at YesAlsoPod after the episode. Check out Lauren's pics and give us a follow there. But for now, just get a load of how great Lauren is. Hi, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. Which part are you excited about?
Just like being here, I guess. The talking.
Now that we've covered that. The talking.
Yeah.
So we can talk about literally anything.
As long as I'm talking into a microphone, I'm having a good time.
Me. You're like, did you ever have one of those microphone sets when you were a kid? Where, like a little
with
fake
the cassette.
speaker. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was great.
What were your jams? You would like sing into it, or what would you?
A lot of Disney cassettes.
Uh-huh.
Dancing, singing, performing to those. That's most of my memories.
Let's start there.
Yeah.
Were you a performer as a kid?
Within my family, I was like, I would do little things and be funny and stuff, but I wasn't really, I mean, I guess I think of myself as being shy when I was a little kid, but I was a class clown, and I was definitely funny within my groups of friends and stuff.
And then when did you decide, oh, I'm this and I'm leaning hard?
Probably around late elementary school. I was like, I want to do plays. That was when it became kind of a thing people were talking about. In 4th and 5th grade, you could audition for the local children's theater plays. And I didn't get in the first time. And then the second time I did get in, but you had to sing a song and do a thing. And then, so I was in a few plays.
Isn't it wild to think back and be like, you didn't get in?
It's really not
who
cool.
are they eliminating from that stage of theater?
Rude. It's rude. I'm like 9 or 10 being I just want to be in the Peter Pan play. And they're like, no.
Right. Yeah. I want to be in this community theater production that has the largest chorus in the world and people are paying $5 to go see a show. And they're like, no, you're not good enough. You have to stay home. Yeah.
But that was kind of a theme because I did the children's theater stuff and I really liked it. And then when I was in high school, I could not get into a single play. I auditioned, and my school was very talented. I will say that there were a lot of very talented people who were really good. I couldn't get into any plays. And there was a show called Writers Showcase every year where students would write the show, pieces, and then students would direct the show. And I could never get into that. And every year I got closer friends with the person directing. It was whoever it was a closer friend of mine. And I never ever got in. And it broke my heart every year. And I would get into the sketch show, Yamo, which was, I'm from Evanston, Illinois. And we had a yearly sketch show. I would always get into that. It was written by students and directed by students as well. And so that's where I kind of started finding my voice, was being like, oh, I get to be in this. I get to be funny and do this. And then when I was a senior in high school, my teacher told me I should take classes at Improv Olympic. And that was that was where everything really changed because I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
So
you were a senior when you started IO classes. That's wild.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I love that not only were you rejected from 4th grade community theater, but rejected from high school plays, which also feels like where I'm from, it was very anyone who wants to participate is at least chorus.
It should have been true, but it was not. No, a lot of people didn't get in. It wasn't just me, but I was everything. I auditioned for every musical, every every Shakespeare. I mean, I wasn't good at Shakespeare. I shouldn't have. I mean, but I wanted to be in the play. You know? So like,
yeah, you're a kid
there was like,
who wants to do activities with friends. Yeah.
I cried so much.
Good
I always
Lord.
remember crying about not getting into the plays. And feeling terrible.
Heartbreaking. Well, look at you now.
But fuck you, bitches.
Yeah.
But no, but Yama was always the best thing because by my senior year I was directing it. So it was like I got to like really feel involved and like that was like my show and it was special. A lot of people were in it. There were a lot of different like companies within. There was like dancing, singing, comedy. I was like in the comedy company.
Why comedy? Was it because you had enjoyed being a class clown and you were emerging as funny? Or
I was always funny. Like I think that was like kind of like my personality trait that I would have like my whole life. I was like, that's pretty much what I would hold on to. Probably was more like sarcastic, biting growing up, and then like finding a voice as I got older where it didn't have to be like that, which was much better. But yeah, like and then when you audition, they put you in a company within it. So it was like, I guess I just was naturally in that. There was one year where I almost was in the singing company. I guess I had gotten good one year and everyone was surprised.
You
and
got
then
good one year.
They were like, we almost put you in whatever it was unexpected, but we put you in Impulse.
To hear that you almost got something.
I'm going to hold on to that.
That's on your resume now. I almost got into.
I was like almost good enough to be an unexpected. Means nothing to anybody.
They were almost surprised by how good I almost was.
Yeah.
So what was your journey at IO when you started those classes? Were you intimidated? Were you overwhelmed?
I was both, for sure. I was very nervous. I would take the train on Saturday mornings, and that was really exciting to like kind of be, if I felt kind of adult to be like, I'm going to my thing in Chicago on
you
the
had
weekend.
like a briefcase full of papers that were shooting out of the sides.
Yeah. Like comedy. So I was by far the youngest person. I mean, I was listening to Heather's episode and she had a similar backstory, and it was funny. She was like, they're probably all 24 or something, and I think they were all people who had just graduated college probably, and then some who were a bit older. Like there was a lawyer, there were like some random people in my class, but I definitely felt like I had nothing to say. Like I think that was my biggest concern at the time. Was I was definitely shy in certain situations and like self-conscious, and I would feel like, oh, I have nothing of interest to share with these people because I'm in high school, and like what could they possibly want to hear from me? And I would read on the break. I would read a book. I literally didn't want to talk to anyone. I remember my first level
book is
one,
like how to make friends in adult places.
Yeah. I just was like so in my own world and afraid to branch out, and most of those people became like lifelong friends of mine. So it's pretty great. But like at the time it was, they remember me as being like dorky in that way. Yeah. And like afraid.
Well, yeah. And that is a thing. Even I think when you're in your early 20s doing improv, there is a bit of like, well, what do I have to say? Or like, what life experiences do I have? I mean, I still find myself in scenes where like it's an office and I've never had an office job, and I find myself like pretending to be an adult. It's like jargon, office terms.
I have no idea. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But put me in a restaurant scene, my specifics are
off the charts.
Anything
can happen.
Yeah.
But that's true in the office as well.
That's
and we
true.
need to recognize that.
And it's more about relationships than about the terminology.
It's about the conversation you're having.
It's really about what you're saying between the two or three people.
But it's a good point, because I do feel like a lot of them probably were equally nervous or uncomfortable. We all had never done it before. There were two people in my class who had come from New York, and they had like New York theater improv backgrounds, and their object work was incredible. I always remember the way, and then these are people who are still around, way she opened Chris Adist was one. She opened the oven on like the first day, and I was like, the oven is there. Like it was like amazing. Right. And I hadn't really seen shows. I had gone to like maybe one like Armando show with like friends before that, and I was blown away by those shows, but I didn't really have a sense of what it really was or how I was going to do it. So it was cool.
Do you have any like standout, I mean the oven is one, but like from shows or classes, standout memories of like an object work that blew your mind or a scene that made you
Yes, I always remember one of the shows I saw, Ryan Archibald had a balloon, and it was the most realistic thing I've ever seen in my life. Like it was like, I remember being like, he was being so funny and he had a balloon, and I just remember that was like the funniest thing ever and so cool. Like I could really see it. I can really picture it.
Is this a balloon on a string?
I mean, it was in, object work, but
Yes.
yeah, he was just sitting holding a balloon and being funny. And I just always remember that. And I was in an improv group in high school. I forgot to mention, called the Royal We, which was with some students from school, and that was really fun, and everyone was really hilarious and great, and we always had a good time. This was like while I was taking classes, so I was kind of doing that, but I wouldn't really go see shows ever because I had school and like who was going to take me.
Right.
So like I just kind of never went to shows. I didn't know what a herald, or not a herald, was it? Yeah, I didn't know what a herald was, and they talked about herald through all the classes. And I had no idea what they were talking about, and I did not ask.
That is so funny.
And
they didn't explain. They just assumed that
Exactly.
everyone had already drank the Kool-Aid. And yeah.
I just did not know what was going on for years. And I did heralds before I had ever seen one. And I just didn't know what that was.
Right.
Yeah.
You're just following everyone else. You're like, well, we're all going zoop, 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 zoop.
I didn't want to be like, sound dumb or something, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm sure as I was 18 years old, I didn't want to be like, what is that?
Well, also that's like a major miss on their training program. It's like hand everyone a copy of the book on day one, explain what we're here to learn, why. That's like syllabus 1.1a,
I know. I really don't know where that got lost.
Yeah.
Or if I just said I knew what it was and went along with it because I was, didn't want to look like the only one who didn't know or something.
So when did you start having success in improv?
I would say I felt successful like pretty early on in terms of like how it felt in classes. I felt like I was able to feel comfortable. Like level 2, I definitely was having fun. Susan Messing was my teacher, and she was the best, and she really helps you get out of your head. Like it was so much about like physicality and like just getting silly and crazy. And
I remember her, she used to sub my classes. I never had her as like a proper teacher, but she would sub a lot of my classes. And I remember her telling us, like, if you find yourselves like in your head in shows or like making the same choices a lot, wear a different pair of shoes to your next show. Like you'll move differently. You'll play different characters and different statuses. And it was right. She was right.
I love that.
So yeah, it's like wearing like a hard sole shoe versus soft sole, or
That's great. We used to do those. Is it Bugsby Berkeley?
Oh yeah.
Where you all move at the same time, like sort of like choreography.
Yeah,
and like,
Bugsby Berkeley.
Yeah, and it was so fun. And like I feel like there were so many things she did that helped me get out of my head. And she's so not in her head that it was like such a great example.
Yeah.
At that time in my life, especially.
Do you remember any other nuggets from her?
Yeah, we did like an exercise where we walked around and tried to feel like what part of our body was leading our body.
I do that with my students.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I learned how I walked. And at the time, I was more self-conscious of my height, and I really led with my pelvis. And she kind of like pointed that out to me. And so then we would like heighten like how you're walking, like leading more with that thing. And that really stuck with me because it was like pointing out things about myself that I was completely unaware of. Like I had just probably very little self-awareness as a teenager.
You don't say.
Yeah. That's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, that's very rooted in clowning as well.
Yes.
It's like, what's the one little truthful thing that we can now acknowledge and exaggerate and then really lean into?
Yeah.
Do you still use any of those sort of physicality tricks on stage now?
I think I do kind of naturally take a lot of that stuff, like when coming up with a character and sitting and just trying to make a choice off the bat. I feel physicality is totally important.
Yeah. Is that a conscious choice? Like a scene starts and you want to like just make a choice. Is that conscious to be like, you know what? I'm just gonna like see what happens if I shoot my knees out.
That's like 90% of it.
Yeah. You're a very physical player.
I feel like I don't know that I'm coming out with much up here. And that was actually challenging for me when learning like game and stuff. That was like when I started at UCB, I moved to New York after college. I went to college in Chicago and then moved to New York.
Was college theater or no?
English? Yeah.
Okay.
And it was mainly to keep doing improv because DePaul had a really strong theater program, but to even be considered for that, I would have to like not do anything else outside of it. Like there was like, you have to dedicate yourself to it. And also they cut people every year, and I probably would have been cut the first year and been like, no, I'm not in college anymore. I don't know. So it's just like, that wasn't something I wanted to do, but I always like wanted to get a degree in something and like go to college and do the whole thing. And so that was English is my favorite subject, but my improv life was already like really full, and I already had my friends, and so I really would just go do that every night. Go to IO, ride my bike, or take the train, or see my friends.
Ride
there.
your bike from Evanston?
No, from DePaul.
Oh, from
when I was
DePaul.
in Lincoln Park. Yeah, no, that'd be insane.
I was like, you are so lucky you're alive.
Yeah, no. I'm lucky I'm alive anyway, just riding my bike the way I did with headphones on my like rusty Schwinn vintage bike that I thought like looked cool, but like the chain sucked. You know, it's like, what was I doing?
Helmets didn't
No
exist yet. Yeah. All those triple intersections in Chicago. Yeah.
Yes. But I loved it. It was so fun.
It's so fun. Yeah. I had a bike riding phase in Chicago also without a helmet. And I look back and I'm like, what was I doing?
What is the point of that?
What's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point of almost having a traumatic brain injury every day of your life?
Yeah.
So you moved to New York to do acting?
Yeah. So at that point, I was in a sketch duo with my friend Candy Lawrence, and we were going to move to LA, and then at the last second, she was like, "I want to move to New York. My family's over there," and so I was like, "Okay." So we just moved to New York. It was like really just seat of your pants
to be in your 20s.
I know, and I always wanted to live there, so like it felt like an opportunity. And I gave myself a year in New York. I was like, I'll go to LA after that. But a
year, like if I make it in a year, or
no, it was just
I'm
like
gonna do this
when
for a
the
year.
clock strikes December or whatever.
Yep.
I stayed there for 15 months, but I joined Story Pirates. Yeah. I joined Story Pirates while I was there, which was like so great, and I met so many great people there, and continued that in LA, and then. That's a children's theater company, and they take stories written by kids and perform them, and it's so fun. And everyone in that is like-minded. You know, it's just like it was a great community right off the bat.
So playful, so encouraging.
Yeah. And then same with UCB. I started UCB classes when I like a couple months after I moved there, and I met Laura Wilcox and Sean Diston, like a lot of my close friends that I stayed friends with forever. So
you did
really
the
cool.
UCB program in New York.
Yeah, I did the first a couple classes there.
Gotcha.
I think I had to take. No, I finished the program because I could do. I had the IO background, so I was able to do 2, 3, 4, and then that was it or something. I think at the way the rules were at the time. I don't know if it's changed, but
if you've done a previous program, you can skip to 2 or something.
Yeah, and when I started that, my mind was so blown by game. We used the word game at IO, but it meant something else, and I can't even tell you what it meant anymore because it's been like so worked out of my brain. But like I could not wrap my head around what the game of the scene was. It was really not how we played. I mean, did you feel that when you started UCB?
Yes, it blew my mind. Likewise, and felt like a Rosetta Stone for me.
Yeah,
like, I was like, oh, this is how we can find our way to a successful scene every time.
It made so much sense once I understood it, because with the way I was playing before, it was really much more just like every moment something different can happen. And it was fun, but it has a much lower success rate. Yeah. Like in terms of getting laughs.
Right.
Like actually, but you have to just like work a lot harder. And I think maybe that was good in a certain way. Like, I mean, work harder. I think you probably get what I'm saying, but like you had to like search more for the thing, but it pushes you to like be a comedian. Like, it's like, I feel like I became like, my characters got really strong doing that. I never used my real voice until I started UCB. I literally never used my speaking voice as my own voice. I used a character voice with every single thing I did. And that was like life-changing. I had a manager tell me that I needed to do that.
Because you were going into like actual auditions being like...
No, but she saw me perform and she was like, you just need to learn how to use your own... Because if you're going to audition or... Because I never had an opportunity to audition for anything before moving to LA, really. But she was like, you need to do that because... She's like, you could be like Phoebe on Friends, but you have to use your own voice. And so I was like, it really was mind blowing. I was like, I could be on Friends, you know, something like I could be on a show. I only had like SNL as sort of like the idea of like where this leads, and like didn't really understand that like I could do other things that would be equally fulfilling as an actor, you know,
because you couldn't build a bridge personally being like, oh, I'm that good and could be that good, or because you didn't consider those as...
I like didn't know that improvisers got those jobs.
Yes.
Like
it was like, oh, that's someone who went to Juilliard and studied acting or something.
I just had no idea. I read books about Second City. I read books about SNL. I was like, that was like where my focus was. And I was very passionate about all that stuff. I loved like old comedy, like Nichols and May records. Like I would just
love Nichols and May.
I just love to absorb all that stuff, but none of those stories really led me to the idea of like, and then they were on Will and Grace or something. You know, it's like,
right.
I didn't really like see any paths like that. It was always like leading to the SNL, and like the people I was reading about were on SNL. So like, it's like, how did they get to SNL?
Right.
And then in IO, it's like you would see people get that opportunity every so often, and then it's like, oh, this leads to that. And by the way, when I first started, that was like, it was not for that purpose. It was for the goal of like performing and trying to be funny and like learn how to be funny and in a honed way.
Yeah.
But then once I understood that happened, it was like, oh, well, my dream has always been that, and like this connects to that, which of course my teacher could have seen that connection, but I like had no idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was like kind of my like brain like doing math that's like really obvious, but like I was like 1 + 1 = 2, and it was like, I was like blown away, like oh my god, this could happen. So like
it's like if life is a jigsaw puzzle, like you had all the pieces and fragments on the table always, but you're like, wait, I didn't know these were in the same picture, and then if I click all of these together, I can move around this whole thing. It's like you had the eye and the corner and the mouth, and but it's like, oh, here it makes a face. Because
I was saying I wanted to be on SNL from like a very young age, but when I was doing improv, didn't think that's how you got that. It was more that I was like, I will learn how to do things that would lead to that or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was like a separate path.
Yeah, you were going to hone the craft and have fun and get good and develop your own voice. And then, you know, separately later you would do something to get on SNL. That
makes sense somehow later. Yeah. So then when she said that to me, it was really eye-opening. And like and then when I started UCB, no one really was doing character voices and doing characters like that, especially in my classes. So it was like kind of like, oh, everyone uses their voice and they call each other by their real name, which also really threw me for a loop. I didn't like being called Lauren in a scene. Like that bothered me. But people did that. And like, I totally...
Like, hey, Lauren Lapkus, can I talk to you in my office?
but was that a class? I feel like it was on stage too that people would use people's real names.
I feel like...
Maybe it was an era thing.
Yeah, I think it might be generational. Because in my era, it was a lot of like Sally and Timmy. Yeah. Like people using like very 1950s names. You and I have talked about this too with object work, where it's like, why are we still stuck on mixing bowls?
Yeah. I'm like, when was the last time I stood in the kitchen mixing and holding a bowl?
Holding a bowl in one arm and stirring with the other, like Donna
so
Reed.
Much.
Yeah.
Especially when I was in classes, I did that so much.
We've talked about this too, the off pod, that like there was just so much fishing in scenes at
so
IO.
much
like
fishing.
People just starting by casting a reel.
It was like a way to be looking out, I think was like the main thing. And you don't have to really do anything. You're just able to just talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, UCB was really cool because once I learned game, like I would have my teacher, Kevin Hines was my teacher, and he would say like, that was funny, but there was no game. And I'd be like, well, you said it was funny. I don't really see what the problem
What's the
was.
problemo?
Like, then when I learned game, I was like, oh, and it became really fun to challenge myself to like really understand that and get good at that.
Yeah.
And I really liked it once we were doing Heralds to like see you can kind of, and not it might sound weird to say, but it's like you kind of predict what your teammates are going to do in an interesting way. So like you can say like, oh, they're pulling that, okay, they're going to do this, oh, this is where that's going or whatever, and it still has room for surprise from what we're all bringing to it and how you play individually, but like the knowing the game was like so comforting.
Yes. Well, it gives you something to explore and heighten together.
Yeah.
That like it puts you on the same project. Like instead of just being two people aimlessly wandering around a large house with your own flashlights and being like, I found something cool in the dining room. Cool. I'm in the den. I'll be there in a minute. It's like you're both in the attic, opening the same trunk, examining what's in there, you know?
Yeah.
And there's nothing, not to like trash the IO style, like
no,
there's value in it.
I actually always felt very grateful that my base knowledge was there because I felt like it brought a lot to the UCB table that people who were just learning UCB didn't have, which was like the character stuff and like feeling really comfortable doing big characters. I think like that, and because that's how I like to play, like that was just like I was so grateful that that's where I started because I don't know if I would have found that if I had started at UCB.
Right.
And so I am grateful that it all played. I did Annoyance as well in Chicago, and that was also.
Talk to me about that, because I never took Annoyance only because I couldn't afford more than one school at a time.
Yeah, I just did I think 1 or 2 levels there, but that's really charactery and fun.
And that's sort of like make as bold of a choice as you want, and it's a little bit like. I'm just, from what I've heard from other people, like you don't have to be on the same page. Like you can both be an unusual character.
I was going to say like take care of yourself is kind of what I feel like I took away from that. And it was really fun. I ended up doing some shows there with people that I just kind of got put into. And it was, because I wasn't fully rooted in that culture over there, I always felt a little bit like a fish out of water. Like I felt a little bit out of place in the shows that I would do and feel like I'm not really friends with everyone, or like I was more self-conscious over there, I think. So my home was really IO, and that's where I like flourished more.
And I feel like Annoyance is a little more intimidating if you are coming to this as like a high schooler or early college.
Yeah.
It's like Uncle Fuck Nuts Bunny Fuck Party. Like,
well, and there were people my age there, but maybe they attached to that faster, or they were only doing stuff there, so it was like easier for them to like be in that world.
Yeah.
I think it was a little bit intimidating.
Did you have Mick as a teacher there?
No, I had Tony Mendoza.
Oh, gotcha.
Teacher.
Yeah.
And he was great. Yeah, it was a lot, and everyone there was so cool, and like a lot of it was really hipstery, and like the vibe was very like cool, and everyone's like really drunk. That's kind of what I remember. But yeah, I liked going over there from time to time, but I think I felt the most comfortable at IO, and I loved that you could see shows for free if you were a student or on a team, and so I would just go there and hang out every night, and like the bar was in the theater, so you just have a drink and like whisper to your friend and watch the show, and like it was the best environment. There's nothing like that now.
I know,
and it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
There is not that feeling that you can pop in and just sit on the sidelines basically anywhere.
Right.
So that is a bummer.
It is. Anyone out there who runs your own space or is starting your own scene, cool model. Like the bar is in the theater, and if you want to just go and have a drink there and pop in and watch like half of a show, you're there buying drinks, and that pays for the space. It
really was special. It feels like it, because even when they redid IO, they put the bar in the center of this huge building that it's in now in Chicago, where it's
I haven't been to the new.
It's like a bunch of stages where there's a big bar in the middle that is not within any of the rooms. So it's like you have this hub, but then you go off into the little rooms. And I mean, it's cool. It's like really nice, and so many of the theaters are getting nicer, but I think that's also like sort of sucks.
Well, it's maybe it changes the vibe of the show, and maybe puts a little more pressure on it, or makes it feel a little bit more precious.
Yeah, and I think this sort of, as an improviser, the casualness of being able to just like any improviser can meet up here, and you'll see someone and you'll get to like hang out and watch a show and learn something or laugh and have a good time. Like it just was like an instant community builder that was great at the exact time that it was in, and maybe it is not possible. Maybe it's not how people want it now. So I don't know.
Yeah, I used to, when I was a student there, I used to just go almost every night. Like I'd finish my table waiting shift and go up, and like on the way home, swing into IO.
It was the best.
Watch whatever second half of the show was on. And then when they were closing up for the night, you'd end up like hanging out with all the performers. We'd like go up to the dressing room or the green room or whatever and play murder. And like, how fun is that?
We would mostly just get really high, but that also was an option. But it was great. Yeah.
Okay. So once game, do you remember like your journey through learning game? Was there something that helped it to click for you, or like a scene that where you were like, oh, it can be this simple? Or
I remember like almost touching it like multiple times, where it was like I was like, I think I almost got it. Like that feeling was sort of like fleeting. Like I would feel like a scene happened, and it felt like it was almost there. And I don't remember exact scenes, but I just remember it was definitely in class, like the feeling of like, okay, I'm really getting this now. And when I like was able to go to the next level, where like then you're focusing on it more or whatever, I can't remember how all the levels are divided, but it felt like I like achieved it at a certain point. Like I actually understood, but it was like an unlocking. Like it really felt like it took a while. I remember a lot of like standing around being like, I really don't get it. I don't get why that was it. I don't get why he said that was good. I can't I can't get it. Like it was hard for me.
I think this is like important for students listening to hear also, like it does and can and should take years.
Yeah.
Like, cause at this point, how deep were you in your journey?
I had, that was like 2008 and I started so like 5 years.
So 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's still feeling elusive and fleeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
When did you feel like that it cemented? Was that Bangarang?
Yeah, I would say like once I was in New York for like 15 months and then I moved out here, and while I was like visiting looking for a place, I auditioned for Herald Night and got on, which was like really awesome.
Amazing.
And I didn't know anyone. I didn't know where I was going. I went to the wrong place. I went to the theater for my audition and it was like, no, it's at this other building. And so I like had to race over there and like I just got there right before we were about to go in. It was like really crazy.
Was it when they were doing it at that little space in West Hollywood?
Yeah, it was like, definitely far away. I had no
space.
clue where I was, but it was like a classroom.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I was in my audition with Jacob Reed. I remember him from that, but I don't remember. Maybe Betsy was there. I can't remember. I remember meeting people in that, and they were doing a warm up that I'd never heard of. It was like really like I didn't know what was going on. Thankfully, the audition went well, but it's like that's such a crapshoot anyway because you could have had people that you like can't connect with, or you have a horrible scene, or you don't get to go out.
It's such a crapshoot.
It's so
and
hard.
Everyone's so nervous.
Yeah, and I was so nervous. It's like it was a lot, but I thankfully got on, which was so amazing because then when I moved, I had a team immediately and I had people who wanted to hang out. Like it was like I didn't know anyone really out here, and to be able to be like, oh, we're meeting at this bar before this and we're gonna get together, then we're gonna have rehearsal, and like people kind of checking in and being like, do you want to come to this thing or whatever. It was so nice. So it was like Tony and Betsy and Ryan Stinger and Ryan Maher. Well, no, Ryan Maher was not on it yet. I won't name everyone.
Yeah.
We changed the team a few times.
So
Dave
funny.
Tooney was later added. Anyway, it was great.
Oh right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. And you were our coach for a while, which was amazing.
I was. That truly my favorite coaching experience of my life.
It was so fun.
What a blessing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you all were so good. And by the time I came in, you had already been working with Eugene for a while.
Yeah. And we had Billy Merritt.
Yeah. So you by the time I entered Bangarang, you were a fully baked, totally confident team.
Yeah.
It's one of those scenarios, like it made me a better coach because for me to have to like come up with, well, what else can we do?
Yeah.
Like you were doing Heralds. It's like, yeah, this is great. Everything had a clear game. You heightened it well in the second beats. It was super fun. You're doing the Herald.
Yeah.
What else is there?
Yeah.
And I didn't know the answer to that yet.
It was, and I feel like you were one of my favorite coaches, though. Like I feel well, I don't want to just say you were the favorite when I named everyone else.
Huh? I mean, they're not here.
Yeah, you're my favorite.
Yeah.
Everyone was great, but it was it was really a really fun time, and I feel like that the electricity of Herald Night, nothing like it.
No.
It was so exciting.
Yeah.
The crowd was crazy. The teams were so amped. I haven't been in so long, so I have no idea what the energy is like now.
It's still pretty
okay,
electric.
good.
Yeah.
I'm glad because I loved it so much, and I was like, it was so special, and the shows were so fun, and I remember feeling though it was a different audience. I could feel it when I moved here. Chicago to New York to LA, very different reactions.
Let's talk about that.
I had to adjust each time how I was playing to appeal to the audience. Not because I'm not to like sell out myself, but because it's like, how can I wait? This isn't working. I can't use this crutch. I can't use this thing that I always do. I can't, which is good. It's like to shake it off and be like, how can I appeal to this crowd? And like Chicago was a really specific thing. When as I was learning and doing big characters, it always crushed. I felt like I was like, that was like always they liked that. Okay.
Big character holding a fishing pole.
They liked when I fished. They liked when I mixed bowls. But then New York was a tougher crowd. And I felt that even when once I moved to LA and would go back for Del Close Marathon and stuff, it was such different laughs. It was like, you could not do the same thing. It was really interesting.
And my experience doing DCM, so DCM was in New York. When we would go out there to do those shows, I felt us having to really work for the first like 10 minutes of the show. My perception was, a lot of this audience, the majority of it, are people who live in New York.
Yeah.
So they have their favorite players who are all New Yorkers. They don't know who we are.
Yes.
So they're like almost like skeptical at the top of the show, or just like not knowing.
Yeah.
When it's like Mantzoukas can walk on and he goes like, "Is this a toilet?" And everyone's like, "Ah!" And it's like, why is he getting that confusing fucking standing ovation over a line? Like,
yes,
yeah.
And it was a lot of that, like where you're unknown to that person. Because we would go to DCM from Chicago as well. But that was always really fun. I felt like it was a crazier. Maybe the teams I was coming with, we had a crazier energy and didn't care as much or weren't taking it in as much. But like, yeah, coming from LA back to New York, I was like, oh, I'm like readjusting to this. And yeah, it was like they like their people that they like. And the same is true here. With Herald Night, I was really blown away when I started by the laughs we would get, because I was like, that wasn't anything. Like there were times where I'd be like, the emperor has no clothes, like I was kind of aware of like, oh, but they just are fans of what's happening,
right? And
then you have to kind of be aware of that and not be like, everything I say is funny. Like it's because it's not.
It is a place that can create bad habits if you're not careful. And I remember telling you guys that, where it's like, careful of the super fans. Like still do your scenes right and still like connect and have a point. And
it's so important, because it's really fun to get those laughs and like just ride it out, but like you can lose track of what actually works.
Right. And if you're getting huge laughs just like easily or with anything, you can be tempted to just make jokes that don't fit with the scene, or that wouldn't be something that your character would say.
Oh my God. And like, and whenever I've done that, it's the worst. That feeling I feel so cheap. Like whenever I've done something,
cheap whore.
Whenever I've done something like that, though, I'm like, it burns in my head forever. I have one. I don't remember the exact thing I said, but I remember doing like a sort of like cheap thing, and it just being so flat, and then me just being like, I knew that. And I can feel it now. So when I'm like performing now, sometimes you have that impulse to do the thing like that, and you're like, and I can actually just go, that will simply not be funny. Like, I know that no one will laugh if I do that.
Yeah.
And I've still done it. It's not every time that I'm able to stop it from happening, but it's like I have more of a filter for it now, which is a blessing.
That's good.
Sucks.
Well, yeah, and even if they do laugh, it's like,
you still know.
Yeah, if it's the wrong kind of laugh, like
cheap.
It's cheap, and now you're in a scene where your character has said something that's not in the reality, or you've introduced something. It's like, well, now, because I said I've been abducted by aliens, now the whole reality has shifted to this, when really it was just an awkward dinner party, and that was so fun to play.
Yeah.
Now we're doing this. Yes. And now walk-ons are coming on as aliens.
Yes. And there are still times where I'm trapped in something that I've created, and I'm like, okay, great. But it's knowing that feeling, kind of being able to see it coming is really helpful.
Yeah. Talk to me about like the evolution then of your improv and your improv career, like from Herald Night to where you are now, which is like things have exploded in a million directions for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really exciting. I feel like, first of all, doing improv is like such an amazing base for like everything else in this industry. To have the community, the ability to perform on any given night and not be, beholden to like somebody's rules or whatever they think you should do. And like, there's so much about it that is so amazing for just growing as a performer and comedian. And I'm so grateful for that. Like, I think Herald Night was great. And I was on indie teams as well. And that's where a lot of like, I think the magic happens, because you're not within the confines of a form,
right?
And getting to play with other people that you just like.
Yeah.
Like once you're finding your own teams that are not cast by somebody else, that's really, really fun. It's like, oh I just think this person's funny. Do you want to be on a team together? Like that's the best.
And were you the one doing that, or were people doing that to you, or how were
Both.
your indie? Okay.
Yeah, like there's people would ask me to be on a team. I was on a team called Typhoon for a while. That was really fun with Casey Faye and Jacob, and there were a bunch of us. I can't remember everyone now. Ryan Meharry. We had so much fun, and like I anytime I was starting one, I was really excited. Like with Wild Horses, that was a group that we put together. I was invited to perform at an all-female improv festival in Portland called All Jane No Dick, and I didn't have a team, so it was like someone I knew from Chicago, Stacey Halal, who runs that.
Oh yeah.
I knew her, and she was like, "Do you want to come perform?" And I was like, "Yep." And then I was like, "Let me just put together a team of women," and I had fun with the three of them, Mary Holland and Stephanie Allen and Aaron Whitehead. So it was like, let's be a team and let's go. And we just did that festival and it was really fun. And then that's how we became a team.
That is wild.
And it lasted for 10 years. So
yeah. And you all used to book really great guests.
Yeah, once we found that format, so it used to be like we kind of did a book club format where we were just a book club getting together and we would like have name the book and then just
the suggestion would be the name of a book.
I think so. I'm trying to remember, but we just like to live in like a little simple world together. And so
you're also all readers.
Which
helps for a book club thing.
True.
Yeah.
And we had at a certain point we decided we wanted to do a show at UCB like regularly, and we ended up we just like talking, and so we were like, let's just have a dinner party style conversation with a guest. So we'd have like a celebrity guest and then do improv based on the conversation. And then we get to be in our little, world together, like that book club vibe. But then it takes, we take all the stuff from the conversation.
And it ended up being sort of a spin on The View,
yeah,
right? But you called it The Perspective.
Yeah. Because we all have differing views, even though we're all four white ladies who are the same age. But we would find that we would like really butt heads on certain things. So that was really fun too. Like the times where we like were like, that's what you think about that? Like there were so many surprises.
Yeah.
And we had such a fun time doing that. So that ended up being a great outlet for a while. We performed at the Kennedy Center. We did like a run at Largo and Dynasty Typewriter and like did so much together. So
what was it like playing the Kennedy Center?
That was great. It's weird because now they do a lot more improv there. Mm-hmm. I think somebody in charge must know what's up or something, because like how we got there was like beyond me at the time. But it felt like it's too important here for me to be talking about my pussy, but I'm going to. The crowd was great. And we got to go bowling at the White House. There was like a lot of fun stuff.
Wait, what?
Yeah. That was through Tig's festival. She was like running a fest or something at that point. I can't remember what it was called. But we got to go bowling at the White House. They have a bowling alley there.
Oh, I know that. But like, how did you get the invite?
I don't know. I just show up.
Yeah. You just got an Evite.
Yeah. I think it was through Tig, but I'm like, I don't know what happened. I don't know who that was. It's great.
Do you feel like your improv is still evolving and growing?
I do. I feel like I'm finding my voice more and more. I think doing Comedy Bang Bang was really huge. When I started that, I didn't know what it was either. I like to. There's so many things I just don't know what they are, and I just say yes, which I think is also an improv lesson, which is great. To not be afraid of something just because you don't know what it is. And I would just go and do things that I didn't know. So I did Comedy Bang Bang without having listened to it. Maybe this is a reveal of that. And it was really exciting because it was, getting to do a character for a long time on a podcast. We talk for an hour as a character. And I had never really talked at length as a character.
What was the first character you played on there?
I played a foreign exchange. So it was a girl who had studied abroad for 3 months, but then made that her identity.
Yep. Yeah. Came back with an accent.
Now I'm Italian.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Fun.
That was fun. And
you play. That's so the bullseye of your comedy. I feel like, or that's one character type, is like someone who like loves themselves or really wants you to know what they're up to.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. I love really confident idiots.
Yes.
That's the best.
They're the best.
So fun because you can really say anything. And so once I started getting brought back in that world and becoming like a staple in there, that was like a really big turning point too, like finding my voice within that show. And the fan base, it was a totally new feeling, because with improv, you're performing for the people who are there, and that's great, and you kind of forget it the second it's done. And then being on a podcast where it's like, we're recording this and hundreds of thousands of people are going to listen to this, and that was just huge. It was so cool. And then eventually touring with that show was like the best time ever. In 2016 I went on tour like all across America and Canada and then Australia, and it was the best.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Do you play the same character every night on those tours, or
no, different one every night? Yeah. And with Paul F. Tompkins, like at that time we were trying to like do different things every night and new characters, and sometimes we do a character together, like do something, like team up and do something. But
what inspires your characters? do you keep a list in your phone of like ideas, or do you just on the day come up with something?
I don't always have a list, but when I'm about and I know I'm going to do it, I'll like start to like make a list, and usually it's either an adjective and a name, which I I just played Dirty Diana on like the tour that I just went on. I'm like, just like, what's that mean? Okay, and then piecing together what that is, or a voice that I want to do, and then finding what that person is from the voice.
How do you find the voice? Are you just like fooling around and you land on something?
Yeah, or just like talking to myself where I'm like, oh, that's funny. Like then kind of remember that. I like to do that. And then
can you give me an example?
Yeah,
so
like,
you're like walking around your house cleaning.
Well, like I did Big Grande, and I talked with a pencil in my mouth the entire time because I thought like I like just the way the spit was building around it. It's like it's so annoying and gross, and like I just thought that was really fun. So like, and yeah, walking around my house and just being like, well, that's what I gotta do. You know, it's like, I'm like, oh, I don't like this person. And it's like, it is that dumb. I mean, I don't know. There's not much more to it. But then layering on like, what's my name? What's my background? And like with Comedy Bang Bang, you can there's two like schools of thought, I think, with way people come in. Like Joe Wengert is somebody who has like a game that he will slowly reveal over the course of the episode. And then it'll be hilarious when you finally piece together what his thing is. Mm-hmm. It's like the best reveal. My thing is more like I'm starting from a character and then finding what is crazy about me as we go on.
Yeah.
And I think people do both.
I've done both ways.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have a favorite, because the having like a very clear sort of like heady game appeals to the writer in me.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, it's fun to like.
You're really good at that.
Oh, thanks.
Like I feel like
hit or miss.
I don't know. I feel it's hit with you.
Oh, cool. Yeah. It's a hit.
It's a hit. Keep it.
But I had like a run of Bang Bang episodes where like 3 in a row I was like, oh my God, that was too heady. And because it can put me in my head, because it's like, well, now there's a correct answer and I have to like be a very fast writer. And it's like, well, if the game is, you know, coming up with slogans for things, then anything he throws me, I have to like pedal really fast and come up with one.
I do not do that for that reason, because I have done that to myself.
Yeah.
And I had an idea for the recent shows that I popped in on the tour doing, and I was like, it's a person who always knows about the movies and da-da-da. Well, I don't know about movies, and I don't want to know about movies, and I don't want to have to know about movies. So like that cannot be my thing.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be much looser.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll find a thing where like it's if I have to know about movies because we've set that up, that's fine. I have a lot of fun doing that and like being on my toes. But like,
because then also you have the option as a player of evolving the game. Like if you're thrown something that you have to know about, the audience appreciates that you didn't come in with that.
Yeah.
So they appreciate whatever your take on that is. So if your version of knowing stuff about that is like knowing the wrong things, okay, now you're this like confident idiot.
People can get on board with that. Really fast.
And it's not your fault because you didn't. But when you come in like this, so this is where I've screwed myself at times. It's like coming in declaring that like this is my deal.
I'm an expert in dinosaurs.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, okay, now you have to like think of 5 billion things about that. And
right.
What do you know?
Yeah. What do you know? Yeah. So I had a run of that, and then finally was like, I can't do that again. Yeah. And then I realized like, oh, it's radio. Like you can play literally anything.
Yes, that's the best.
So and then my favorite one was like, okay, the antidote to that headiness was like, I'm gonna play a potato, because it's like, you know,
and that's right.
Yeah, but now I've gone back to the other ones, and I'm like, I need to do more shit like that,
like potato again.
Yeah, or like be the air, or like what?
That's what's so fun, because I play an elf on there, and then it's like I'm like the size of a dollar bill. And I love that. And like, and that was one of the things coming from improv into that, being like, oh, I can play any character and I look like the character in people's mind. Right. I look like this.
Right.
And it's really fun because when I do improv, I actually feel like I look like the person that I'm being. I really feel that I look like that. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to reconcile the fact that I don't. So like, I love
breaks the reality.
It does.
Yeah.
When I'm like making fun of somebody, like doing an impression of somebody, I feel like I look like them.
Yeah.
Like I really like. I don't know if it's like a brain problem or if that's what everyone thinks. Like, I don't know.
No, I do. Tell me this, like, there are times where I so very clearly in my mind am playing a dude.
Yes.
And then the guys on my team call me she, her, and it great.
so annoying.
It's so
I'm
crazy.
like, obviously everything I was doing was male.
Right. Can't you see the goatee that I see?
Yes.
And like, can't you? Yeah.
Yes.
But it's like, of course they can't. And
Right.
of course, and yeah, like, oh, great problem, Susie. Yeah. It sucks for you to be misgendered
I know,
as your
I know.
character. It's like, yeah, I hear it. I hear how shitty that sounds, but
but in terms of a specific improv scene,
Yes.
we're talking about just, when you're like, I'm trying to project this within the scene.
right. Or like I know that I'm being on a rascal scooter right
Yeah.
now, but like other people don't see it,
They might call
or
it
they don't.
something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you play characters and you're picturing that, when you said like you're doing an impression or you're like making fun of someone, are you grabbing people from real life that you have seen and you're doing them?
Yeah. With Comedy Bang Bang, for sure. Like a lot of things are from people that I've met. Like not people I'm close with. It would be insane. But it's like somebody I saw at Marshall's or something.
Right.
Where I'm like, that woman was really frazzled holding all those bras. You know, I'm like, what's her deal? Like, I love her. So I love that stuff. And then like when I started doing my own podcast with special guest Lauren Lapkus, that was like an improv challenge for myself that I was so excited about, of having the guest be the host. So the guest,
explain the conceit of the show. It was so brilliant. You were so great at it. Yeah,
it was so fun. And the guest, so I would tell the guest, you're the host of an episode of a podcast. It's as if you've done this podcast 100 times. You are whatever character you want to be, and then I'm your guest, and you're going to introduce me with whatever details you want to give, including my name, but anything else you want to say about me. I'm a best-selling author who's done this, that, and the other. You can label me as anything, and then I'll be that character. And it was so fun because A, I hate doing work, and B, I love the challenge of improv. So it was like really a perfect setup.
Yeah.
Because I got to create a million new characters without having to do that first step of what is my backstory. And it's just a really fun challenge because some people come in with a lot and some people come in with a little, and you have to, either way, I am carrying the show. Like, it's like, that's the understanding that I have coming into it. I'm not coming in to be lazy. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm coming in to make sure that this succeeds, because it's a lot to put on the other person. So I would never think like, oh, they're coming in and I could just talk with whatever, I'll respond to whatever they say. Yeah, it's not that at all. It's like, it's really a challenging format, but it's so fun for that reason.
You were so good at it. You're great at, I mean, it's like a masterclass in taking on an endowment. It's like immediately, as soon as the endowment is given, you're in it. You're in a vibe, a voice. It tells
you how amazing it is to endow, because it's the best thing in the world. When you receive it, you're like, great, it's all done. Like, I don't have to do it all. Like, it is the biggest gift to label your scene partner as something. Aren't you just so relieved when somebody does that?
It's cool. Yeah. I feel like sometimes though, in the past, like my old improv brain had a hard time like readjusting if
you come
I had
in
pictured
with
something different.
Yeah.
And then my, like, I don't know if it's the Virgo in me. You can speak to this maybe, but it's like, no, because my game was this. And
I definitely have had that experience. And I think doing a herald, like there's situations where you have to wait and see what the person is going to say.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe a little messy if someone walks out first in like in a herald and then you label them.
Yeah.
Without them getting their game out or whatever. But in a situation like that, I mean, of course it's set up for that, but like, or just like where you're loosely doing like a show at like a random, indie night or something.
Right.
It's like really nice to just have someone just go, hey, we're both sisters and we're working at this telemarketing place.
It's the
like,
best.
Great.
Yeah. Or labeling. Yeah. Any gift in organic improv is so wonderful. Yeah. And the sooner it can come in the scene, the better. Like,
I forgot that word organic. That really is what IO is compared.
Yes. Yeah. Much. Yeah, it is. Cause they're not pulling premises. They're pulling like a detail from, I feel like there were a lot of sound and movement openings.
So much sound and movement. And there was a pianist playing on the side. So you're also interacting with that character, essentially, of like the person kind of like playing music that goes with your scene.
Right.
But then sometimes you like move to the piano. Like it would totally happen.
It would totally happen.
It happened.
Don't tell me that it didn't.
That happened. That was real. We experienced that.
We experienced that.
But honestly, that is a little weird.
And at times the piano would be so specific that now that becomes a genre.
There was one
scene.
guy who would do his own fucking thing, and then you would be like, okay, now we got him tonight, so it's going to be like, ding, tarang, tarung, and it's like something random's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
I bet I can name that person off pod. Yeah.
But yeah, the podcast world I feel like was an improv. Like I didn't expect it to go there at all. I didn't expect my improv career to like move in that direction. But then it was amazing because it was like I was, you know, getting acting jobs throughout this time and like doing TV and movies and stuff, which was my dream. But doing the podcast stuff ended up being like so fulfilling because I didn't have to wait for anyone. I didn't have to audition. I got to just do it every week and have an audience. And it was my humor, not performing somebody else's humor.
Right.
And
you're learning and stretching and challenging yourself by virtue of playing with so many different people.
Yeah.
It's like each, especially like with special guest Lauren Lapkus, each show is a different form because it's that person's show idea. So now you're in all these different realities all the time. Bang Bang, you're playing elves, you're playing what's another character you play on there where like you look like the thing and it's not what you look like?
Well, like Big Sue is a character I play who's she has huge lips and she talks like this and she loves pizza and I got to play her on the TV show, Comedy Bang Bang TV show, and so I got to bring her to life and that was the coolest. And it was such a fun show.
Did you work with the hair and makeup department to make what she is? Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's so great.
I got to like describe what it is and they got all the pieces and made it happen. And it was so cool.
It kills me that you are not on SNL. That is so made for that.
I wanted it so badly and I did get to audition. And you helped me with my audition at the time. I looked back and it was before I did Comedy Bang Bang and I didn't have any of those characters.
Right.
I look back and I'm like, I was coming up with characters for the audition, but my characters were much less defined. It was more just like what I would do in improv on any given night. So then I was like, well, maybe that was something. So I was kind of cobbling together the audition and I look back and think, oh, now I have 10 strong characters with full backstories and lives.
Right.
I like more than that. I mean, there's probably 50 and it's like, that feels weird, but I also just go, I'm in such a different place in my life now. So like I am grateful that I got to test because it was so cool to be flown out and go on the stage. All of that was a dream come true. I really feel that like in many ways my dream came true because you got to do that. It was so cool.
Were you in the room with Lorne? Wow.
Yeah, and he came to see I did a couple like showcases that he was in the audience for, and I remember looking through a pinhole behind the stage and seeing him.
You brought a pin and carved a little tiny hole.
There was like a little hole in the and this is in New York, and I was flown to New York to perform for him with like 10 people at like the Pit.
I must have been busy. That's why they didn't. Yeah. No.
And then I got flown out to do the test. And so there were like levels to that felt like I had succeeded by getting that. And Kate McKinnon got it the year. She's fucking incredible.
She's
like,
incredible.
And I know her audition was amazing. So I'm just like, I can't feel too down on myself. You know?
Of course not. Yeah. No, and nor would I want you to.
Yeah.
It's just, it is in some ways, it's just insane. Like that you are like what that show wants.
It would have, it feels like it would have been perfect for me in many ways. And I would have been perfect for that in many ways. But by the time I had tested, I also had been on a sitcom. Like there were things that were happening in my life where I was like, oh, this is also really amazing. And I can see how this could be my dream. And my dream was shifting. So like I still would have done it. That would have been my dream. Would have done that whole thing. But when it didn't happen, I felt like, okay, well, I'm building a career. And like that feels really good too. And that feels equally insane that this is happening. So like I have to take that and go, I fit in here too, you know?
Totally.
There's not just one way to achieve even a specific dream. Like it's like, that might be like in theory you didn't get the thing you said you wanted your whole life. That was the only thing I knew I could want.
Right. And so, in many ways that dream was the vehicle to get you to these other dreams.
Yeah.
It's like you could only see the canoe. You couldn't see the other shore. But now that you're on the other shore and you don't need that canoe anymore, you have all these other things available to you.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of framing it as like standing in that audition and doing that process was living that dream. I could
feel it. I could cry, honestly, because it was okay. It was so, I was so nervous. I was in my hotel room running it all fucking day, which maybe didn't help, but I couldn't I was like, if I'm sitting here not doing it, then I'm insane.
Yeah.
Like I was like,
and also if anything goes
if it
wrong,
goes wrong, and
then you have
I was
yourself to blame.
watching TV, then
Yeah.
like I'm crazy. So yeah, it was like, I ran it all day. I did it. It felt like the fastest thing that's ever happened. The thing that I felt was really crazy was that you could see other people doing their audition on a TV. The other performers, auditioners, were in a room watching
just watching them on a screen.
And like I walked back and saw someone else's audition. I went, oh my God. And I like left because I was like,
oh, it feels dirty. It's like watching someone change into their clothes in a dressing room or something.
Yes. Yeah. I really didn't want to know what they were doing. And I didn't want to see how it was better or worse. I didn't want to feel anything about what someone else did.
Because also, what happens if like it's like they're also doing a T-ball coach character?
Right. Yeah.
Well, what the fuck? Now does mine seem like I'm copying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think people went out for drinks after. I just went back to my hotel. I really was not like able to just chat after that. It felt too crazy. It was like the biggest experience of my life. And then I was like, I need to go just like lay down.
Yeah, I need to go to a hospital bed and IV nourish myself for a week.
Yeah.
Was the audition on the stage at 8H?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And
how many people were adjudicating?
I couldn't see them.
But like about how many? Like
maybe 10.
7? Okay.
I don't know. I couldn't see them. They were like there. And then you really were supposed to look dead through, to the camera and like say your name. Like once it started, it was just go perform straightforward. And like, I did it. I don't know. I think back and I'm like, oh, if I could do it right now, it would be so good. It's like, who cares? Well, yeah, that was like 15 years. I mean, when did I audition? I guess I was 27 or something. I'm 39. So yeah, it was a while ago.
Wow. Yeah. But how cool.
It was amazing.
Yeah. What a life.
It was so cool. And I would love to host. So if they ever want me to host,
you hear that?
Happy to do that.
SNL?
That'd be my dream now.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. I mean, that was always part of that dream. You know what I mean? That's so cool.
And still very achievable.
Yeah, maybe it'll happen someday.
Yeah. What are your like aside from that, what are your other career goals now that you're doing TV and film and all this stuff? Like what's next?
I want to make my own things, but I also really just like doing things that other people have made that are people who are really talented. So like I want to start my own show. I mean, like things like that I've like come really close to and then haven't happened. So
would your ideal be multicam or single cam?
I'm really open to either one. I love multicam.
I do too.
It's so fun.
It's so fun.
I just did one the other day and I was so happy to be back. I felt so at peace. My first job was a multicam. I was called Are You There, Chelsea? It was a sitcom on NBC and it was my first pilot season. I got a pilot. It got picked up and we got to shoot. It was so lucky.
How blessed.
And I was very blessed. And so that was a huge learning curve for me though, because I had never really done anything. I'd done like 2 commercials and then got that. So like when I'm back in that environment, because I've done a few multicams over the years, I'm like so happy. It feels so good. And then I love single cam because it can go so many more places and be a totally different energy. I mean,
and you get to shoot things like in a car or like on a,
And I have a lot of fun with like, real emotional acting as well. So like, I think multicam acting is like, it's a certain style.
A little more theatrical.
But I love that too.
Yeah. It feels, multicam to me taps into a nostalgia and a dream trove within my own self where it's like, you're doing the thing that you watched when you were a kid that made you want to do the thing.
Yes. And it's so comforting. It's like, it's a really, and when I said real emotional acting, I meant like real emotional, not real
you meant
acting.
Like not bullshit
when you
multicam
see,
acting.
No, because when you see people who are amazing on multicams, like they make it so grounded and so real. And it's really inspiring.
Rewatching Friends and Cheers.
Oh, some of the best TV. I mean,
even broad characters like Phoebe or like Woody on Cheers. It's like, they're not joking this at all. Yeah. They're playing this totally sincerely and earnestly. There's no mugging. There's no winking. It like really is like they are believing what they're saying.
Yeah, it's so great.
Yeah. Schwimmer's great too. Oh yeah. Matthew Perry, incredible. Yeah. I mean, they all are amazing. Yeah.
But yeah, so either way, I mean, I'm really excited for whatever happens. That's like I had 2 kids recently, as you know, and I feel like that was an interesting sort of shift in my life and my feeling about everything too. I feel really happy, and I also like in one of the best like headspaces of my life, but like it definitely affected how I feel about improv, how I feel about performing, and and jobs and everything.
In what way? Like, how did it change how you feel about improv and jobs?
I think before having kids, you are free in a way to do whatever you want all the time. So, given whatever responsibilities of your life, but like I could go do a show whenever I feel like it. And then it became like, well, that's not really true. First of all, like physically I have to get better. And then I have to I have a partner who is in this with me, and they need to sign off if I'm going to go do something and whatever. So that changed like the amount I was performing. And then it became like the shows that I was doing, I wanted to be more specific and more important to me. So I started putting my own show at Dynasty, that was like a really exciting moment to I did that for, I don't know, maybe a year. But I really enjoyed that process of like having friends come and doing the show and like making a night of it and promoting that show and like putting more stock in it as opposed to just kind of like running up and doing something and running home. Like,
right.
It had to matter a little more
instead of a million tiny shows where it doesn't matter if they matter or not. And they can be varying in quality or in size or whatever. Yeah. It's like concentrating and focusing into these larger things
and guesting on people's shows who were doing similar things. And that felt like a shift for sure. I'm kind of now going like I'm more down to do more random stuff because I miss it. But yeah, it's been a few years, especially the pandemic changed it. That instantly was like a big change. And like now we're not doing this at all. So I was doing improv online, doing like live stream improv shows with Paul F. Tompkins. And like, we did that every month. And it was one of the weirdest things I've ever done in my life. It was fucking bizarre. They all exist on Dynasty's website. So you can watch them if you want to.
Oh man.
But they were really weird. And that was a shift for me. And then like when everyone was coming back, it was exciting. But then I was like, now I have a kid, and then now I had another kid, and so it's like it's just been, and like being pregnant doing shows. Mary and I did a show together when we were both pregnant, and that was so fun. And then I was like, this is what I want to do, sort of like the way
pregnant prov. I just have to keep getting pregnant.
No, but being with just Mary, I was like, oh, why have we not been doing this? It was like some of the best scenes I've done in years. I just felt it felt like core what I love about improv, like
which is what, just tucking into committed characters. Yeah.
Just both of us being a committed character and just being in little scenarios. It wasn't even really like gamey. It was just like, oh, I'm on an airplane and I'm annoying, and you're the person I sat next to.
Right.
Like,
and we're just gonna live in this.
That.
Yeah.
And she's so brilliant and it's so fun to play with. Like, I was like, I just want to do that again. So like probably that will happen. But like kind of choosing things that will really excite me and really feel like I'm doing the thing, the improv that I want to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you love a mono scene.
I do love a mono scene, but even those we were doing, what we did with that show was we had the audience write down secrets and then we pulled a secret, read it, and did a scene. And I really liked that because it was like a reset each time. And we both had something that we were pulling, but it wasn't like we had to like perform a group game or something, or get there together or even talk to each other. It was just like, now we both have some inspiration from this. And then
did you share the secrets out loud, or you
we read
gotcha.
them. Yeah.
Okay.
So the audience would know what it was, and then we would do a scene inspired by that secret.
It'd be fun sometime to do the reverse, where you have the secret during the scene, but you don't like that acting exercise, the actor's secret.
Yeah.
But then you could reveal it at the end or something.
Yeah.
We have to do some rapid fire questions.
Okay, great.
Or we get to do some.
Okay, great.
Yeah. We touched on this a little bit, but favorite types of characters to play.
Yeah, it's like unhinged losers or like overly confident idiots.
Give me an unhinged loser.
I have a character, Pamela from Big Bear, she's crazy. She's like, I want to lick your ass. Like, it's like just say anything. It's like I perform with my id, I feel like, in those characters, and that's really fun.
Is she on meth? What's the we justify?
She likes meth.
Okay.
She likes anything. She's a crackhead. Like,
gotcha.
Yeah.
So that's perfect justification.
Yeah.
That buys us any door we want to enter.
And I got to do a Netflix special called The Characters, where this was amazing. They had like 5 or 6 improviser alt comedians do their own special, and she's in there. So I got to bring her to life.
Amazing.
But yeah.
Have you met that character in real life? Was this inspired by a Big Bear?
It came out of with special guest. It was James Adomian was playing Tom Likas, the radio host, and he had me call in as callers calling the radio show, and I just came in with that voice and did that and said I was from Big Bear. I actually didn't know anything about Big Bear. I'd never been there, but then people were like, that was really accurate.
Great. Fucking, you are channeling stuff
I guess there's
here.
like a lot of people there who are a little unsavory.
Little fringe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of get away with stuff. I feel like every time I'm there, it's a mix of like actors and writers on vacation with their families, and also people shooting guns.
And a lot of Trump flags.
A lot of Trump flags.
Really
a lot of mud
surprising.
flaps on
know.
tires.
Yeah.
It's like it's the meeting of both of those grounds. What is your aside from mixing bowls, favorite type of object work to do?
Oh, typing is fun.
Are we on a typewriter, old school, or
it's always
a
kind of
computer?
far away from me. I don't know why. It's like I mean, it's never on my lap. I don't think I've ever done a laptop. Oh God. I've never had a laptop. Yeah, that's interesting. I like to open cabinets. I like to just kind of sit and drive. I like a driving scene.
Like a driving scene. Are you are you grabbing the wheel in different ways depending on what character you are? Are you
10 and 2 versus a grab
or
the
like
bottom,
a wrist on the top of the wheel? Yeah.
I also really like digging in my purse.
Oh, great.
I like to sit in my seat and dig in my purse.
What are you finding in there? Are you pulling objects out, or are you looking with?
It's more like to give time to figure out where the fuck I am. But yeah, and then that can inform whatever you pull out. But it's fun just to kind of be like, oh, I'm in a waiting room, and then
I like picturing a purse that's big enough to dig in.
Yeah.
I also love being the other character in a scene where something like that is happening, because now I can name things that I see.
Yes.
Like you've got a lot of keychains hanging off the side of that purse. You know, like now we can talk about
I'm a Disney adult.
Right. Yeah.
I collect them. Every time you go, you get a new one. Yeah.
I see that. Man, I didn't know there were so many Aristocats.
And they keep that hidden from you. They kind of act like there's 3, but there's a lot more. And if you watch the movie closely, they're hidden in the background.
Really?
They don't get lines.
Oh, it's like a hidden. They don't. Right. Yeah. They don't have featured roles, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
They still get residuals. I did look into that.
This is a true story.
Yeah.
Did you know that Disney has like gangs, like Disney adult gangs?
No.
That talk about unhinged people.
Whoa.
I learned this when I was on a Disney show, and I used to go like with
oh my God, did you get to go for free a bunch?
Yeah, and
That's
like the
so
guide that
cool.
skips the line and stuff.
That's amazing.
Because
so
I would have gotten
expensive.
absolutely swarmed by fans. No one ever recognized me. I always looked for it. I was like, I think that girl knows who I am. No, she wants the ice cream behind me.
But getting to skip the line is the most amazing.
Oh, it was
I've
incredible.
never had the opportunity, but yeah,
absolutely incredible. But he told us, like, he's like, yeah, there's people who he's like, sometimes you'll see them, they're in like matching jackets and they have like different names. So I think the Aristocats is one of them, or like the Alley Cats, maybe it's called.
Kind of like those.
And and there's like, the Lost Boys, and there's like the the
Do
Lamp
they battle?
Hunters or whatever. Well, that's what I asked, and he was like, they get into turf wars. Like they do have different turfs, but the park hates it, and they don't want any like violence or whatever. He said one time like they got a little heated in what should have been like neutral territory, and one of them threw a cafeteria chair, and now their whole gang is banned from Disney, and like they have all the pictures in the system, because it scans your face now. So like none of them can ever go do their favorite thing ever
that
again
is
because
so
their friend
sad.
threw a chair.
That's crazy.
Isn't that dumb?
I love that.
I know. It's so funny.
nuts.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's also like, what personality type is it that takes like the most innocent thing and just tries to like, it's like, I'm a badass rebel that dresses like Peter
Nightmare
Pan.
Before Christmas.
Yeah, Nightmare Before Christmas style.
That's really funny.
We're the Christmas skeletons.
Yeah. That doesn't seem worth it, but okay. Whatever.
What would your dream improv show be? And we can get magical about this. Like you can play with celebrities, you can do it in a wild location.
Okay, it's the Hollywood Bowl.
Okay.
No, actually I don't know if I would like that. I would like it to I think my dream scenario is sort of like making it smaller. I think like a small black box theater with like just everyone who's like your favorite person.
Great.
And then and the audience is all those people too. And it's just like fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever stop improvising?
I don't think so. I feel like it's so rewarding. Like I can't imagine that it would become uninteresting to me. I definitely think like pulling back a little has been good for me because it's made me appreciate the times when I am on stage. Also, like it's just hard to miss bedtime. Like it's literally like it's not that I don't even want to. It's that it's just like, oh, my life is more complicated if I leave at bedtime. But
your own bedtime,
my own, which is 7:30. But I imagine there will be a time where I have more freedom with like babysitters and whatever, and I'm able to do more things. And I do look forward to that because it is so. Every time I'm out, I'm having the best time. When I appeared on the Comedy Bang Bang tour, it was to fill in for someone who wasn't able to do the shows by like at the last minute. And so Scott asked me to come to Seattle and Vancouver. This was like a month ago. And I was so excited, and being back was like the best feeling. So I definitely know that I want to keep, doing all this
and
stuff.
You just appeared. You didn't do a character. You just showed up and then you just disappeared backstage.
And I just was a ghost and people were like, what? And then I was gone.
And then you were gone.
It was amazing.
Mic drop. Yeah. Do you think your kids will be improvisers? I mean, Holly already
Oh my God, she's so funny. I could definitely see that happening. It's so natural around the home. Like I think if both people in your house are improvisers, like you just do bits a lot and imagine situations and play, and it's very easy for us to do that. And so I could see how she would want to do that.
And you guys are such good improvisers with her. Yeah. Like when I was over there and she was like, what I can't remember what the movie was, but she was like, I really want to watch Frozen 2. And you went, oh my God, me too. Just like agreeing.
Yeah. Sounds great. I'd love to watch that.
Oh, me too. Let's get it on. Yeah.
We got to do that.
What would you like to plug?
I would like to plug, you know what? I was on Yo Gabba Gabba recently, and that came out on Apple TV. Cool. And that was a show I watched when I was a babysitter. When I first moved here, that was my job forever, and I loved it. And I got to do that show, which was so fun. And what else want to plug? My podcast, Threedom, with Scott Aukerman and Paul F. Tompkins, and my podcast, Newcomers, with Nicole Byer, where we watch movies we've never seen.
Amazing.
Like Star Wars. And we just did a sport.
Star Wars.
That's where we started, but it's been through so many iterations now. We just did a sports movies. And then I have a podcast that I'm the host of called Haunting, that is all real ghost stories. And I play a character. It's scripted. It's written by somebody else. I'm a character on that, and I host it. And then there's ghost stories people submit.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's fun.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Isn't that great?
Walked down memory lane.
Oh, yeah. If you like this podcast, you can support us and get a ton of bonus content over at yesalso.supercast.com. If you have a question about improv that you'd like us to answer on one of our future Q&A episodes, send it on over to yesalsopod@gmail.com. Remember to follow us on Instagram at yesalsopod, and keep sharing us with your improv communities. We love the love. If you're a theater who would like to host us for a live recording and improv show, let us know at yesalsopod@gmail.com. A huge shout out to Ryan Rosenberg, who produced this thing with his generous help and his unlimited knowledge about all things podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. No, we won't, Susie. That's not how podcasts work. They will see. They won't even see us. They will listen to us. So it's actually the opposite of both things you said. Thanks for listening, and you will listen to us next week. Maybe. We don't know.